Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you all are having a fantastic day. We are going to take a look at Experiment 101's Biomutant. Hey guys, just real quick before we hop into the review, be sure to leave a like on the video as it helps me out a ton, and subscribe if you guys are new. So now, after I got that plug out of the way, let's just hop right into the review. Yeah, so this is Biomutant. This was made by a studio called Experiment 101 Studios, and this was their first big game. This is despite what it looks like and all the commercial, it is not a AAA game. It is only I guess from what I've heard and read and seen, it's only a AA game. So. And you can definitely tell, it definitely lacks some of that AAA, I guess, polish, but, this was only made by a group of 20 people, I believe. I remember hearing stuff about it, but I wasn't, super sure, so I went and I, looked it up, and I couldn't remember the exact number, because it's been a while since I looked it up. All I know is that it was, 20 to 25 people. Very, very small group. Actually really reminds me of, Mortal Shell. Excuse me, if any of you guys have heard of that game, it's a very Dark Souls type game, and that was also made by a very small group of people, and it turned out fantastic. And this game is visually, and a lot of the things that they tried to do is for 20 people. I'm impressed. I feel like a lot of times we think that these games are every time a new game's come out, at least I know I'm guilty of it. I'm like, oh, why does this game look the way this is? Or why isn't it as good? Or why is this, just all these different questions. And it's not every game that comes out is a big AAA game. This one is definitely not, even though it makes you think that it is. And I totally thought it was from all the trailers and whatnot. But it just blows my mind that only 20 people created this game. Or I shouldn't say 20 people. It's 20 developers. So they're the guys that, design the game, make the combat, and all the other stuff. Yeah, there's music and all that stuff. But as far as people that actually, make the game, 20 people. And that just blows my mind. That is insane. And it's freaking awesome, actually. So before I even get into the pros and cons of this video, I just want to say to these guys, Experiment 101, this was a fantastic game for such a small group. You guys should be proud. I'm impressed. Now that doesn't mean that it's not without its faults and whatnot, just like every other game. So just like all my other videos, I'm gonna do the little pros and cons. I wrote them over here on a whiteboard. It just helps me to kind of keep my thoughts together a little bit. But a lot of my pros and cons are it's weird. It's there's some things that are really good, and then there's some things that are pretty bad, and sometimes there's an issue that's it's both good and bad at certain points. So yeah, let's go through the cons real quick. So first thing right off that I noticed that was kind of a con to me was the dialogue. First you have this narrator that's very much reminds me of I don't know, the BBC not History Channel, what is it, Nature Channel, Animal Planet, where when you're watching it and it's got some British guy narrating what's happening in these nature shows or these animal shows, and that's what this does. It does very, very similar, and that I didn't necessarily have a problem with at first. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I really like this. It was how frequently he just randomly would start talking. You'd be just riding down the road, and then all of a sudden he just starts talking about a city that you got close to, and it's it was weird, because some things he would say, when you got close to the tree, he would say stuff that sounded very mysterious and wise, and then you got to other things, and all of a sudden he's talking about porky puffs and split splats and very childish things. So it's weird. It kind of gambles between being serious, but then on the other hand, it will say stuff that it's that's too childish for me. But thankfully, they did give you the option to really tone that down. You can completely turn it off if you want. Of course, he still does talk during the cutscenes, so you don't really get to get rid of him that way. At least I didn't look too much. I just know, like, just during standard, like, you know, going through the map and whatnot, you can definitely dial it down, and that's exactly what I did. About a few hours in, because after a while I was like, is there a way to just, like, turn this dude off? Because I just want to, like, play the game without having someone hold my hand and tell me exactly what's going on with everything. Like, certain things, yes, cutscenes, why not? But it's like me just, you know, looting some random, like, shipwreck, you know, like, let me just do that. So, and then also, something that was pretty annoying, and this is, like, one that I said that's kind of a pros and con, is it still kind of goes with dialogue, is that, like, you would talk to a character, and then they would talk in some gibberish jabber or whatever in their little animal language, and then right after it did that, the narrator would be like, oh, he said this, and it's like, no, why you're just making the dialogue options like twice as long. And I was like, dude, this is taking forever. So after a while, kind of the same time that I was like, let's turn this dialogue, the narrator, down, and that is a good thing that they did give you the option to just cut that out. So, like, I want to say that it's actually called gibberish in the audio section. You go over and you could just straight turn that off, and that's exactly what I did. I was like, oh yes, he's like, I don't mind him, you know, telling me, and if I wanted to hear him say it, I have that option. Of course, you can, you know, just tap X or whatever to skip through all that. But so that was kind of like first thing that I noticed right off the bat. Next thing, this kind of goes along with, I guess, just the story, is that the story is very, kind of like the dialogue. It, like, borders on being serious and being too, like, childish at the same time. A lot of times, like, so I guess, just to recap the story really quick, you're in a post-apocalyptic, I can't freaking talk, world, and you're a rodent, and all the humans have either died or left, and then the Earth is radioactive, and which mutates all these creatures, and hence the name Biomutant. And then there's this world tree, and there's these 4 giant creatures called world eaters, and they're, you know, chewing at the roots, which are gonna in return kill the tree, and they can't kill the tree because then the planet will die, kind of thing. So I do like that story. It's kind of basic, but it's also a little interesting. The thing that I didn't like is that I don't know, it's just like some things were just really cheesy, and I say kiddish. So moving on to the next thing, because I don't want this video to get too long. I'm already at like 10 minutes. Is that I felt like the guns are weapons, but I kind of felt like guns specifically were inconsistent. I feel like at the very beginning the guns were insanely overpowered, because I just started out as like a melee character. I didn't look too much into this game. I didn't want to spoil anything, as I do with pretty much every game that I get. I mean, I see a few commercials and whatnot, but I'm like, I don't read any spoilers, I don't watch any real videos. I just want to go into it with my own, you know, just to enjoy the game. I don't want to go in with anybody else's perspective or anything. But yeah, the guns were just so inconsistent. Like, the beginning, like I said, they just did like a ton of damage, and then as you go throughout, I feel like they didn't do as much. And maybe it's because I upgraded my sword more, but I had a pretty powerful weapon. And yeah, so I just felt like guns and weapons in general were a little inconsistent. Also, mounts. Mounts were okay-ish. I just noticed every time you called a mount or you hopped onto it, the game for me, I was playing on a PlayStation 5, and it would like glitch. It would stop, like glitch for a few seconds. The frames would drop like the second you hopped on a mount, and it happened every single time. There wasn't one time that I got on a mount, whether it was the robot horse, the freaking hand, the freaking weird like a lion dog thing. So like every time you hopped on a mount, it glitched. And then also the mounts were a little weird, because like sometimes you would get too close to an edge and then you just like fall all the way down this hill, and so that was really annoying. And honestly, this next one that I'm going to say is probably I would say out of all these things that were, I guess, issues with the game, this was the one that I had the biggest problem with, was water and kind of oil. Freaking every time I got into water, like, you just die so fast. You have like this energy bar right under your health, and you can't swim to freaking save your life, like, at all. Like, you're basically dead. So unless you're close to the edge, every time I got in water, I died. And it was weird because sometimes you can even, like, some mounts would let you go through the water and some mounts wouldn't. Like, I'd be going through the water and no energy is being consumed, and I was like, okay, great, this is awesome. And then I'd go through, you know, the same, like, spot of water just a little further down, and then I could see, like, the energy going down on my mount. And you can't really get off. Like, when your mount dies, you die. So the water was just really annoying. And same with oil. Like, I understand, like, not being able to jump in oil, but, like, you just sunk too fast. Like, I don't know. And it just seemed like that you did it faster than some of the enemies. And so, like, probably most of my deaths in the game were from water. Like, 100%. Another thing that I found that was a little annoying was the puzzles. They weren't really puzzles. When I first saw them, I thought that, okay, this is just like the intro to puzzles. Like, they're very simple. Turn the orange side to the orange and the white side to the white, or match the shapes, or whatever it was. But the puzzles were just really, like, how they were at the very beginning were pretty much the same way throughout the entire game. So I was just kind of expecting a little bit more from the puzzles, especially because there's, like, these 4 bunkers that you can find that have, like, a lot of really crazy loot in them, and basically the only thing you really need is, you know how to freaking match your colors up. If you could do that, then you could pass all the puzzles in Biomutant. So, another thing that I didn't necessarily like was not necessarily the bosses. The bosses were all, like, pretty easy, but basically every boss was the same. Like, you go and, or at least to get to the boss, like, you go and you get like a certain machine that you get 4 different machines that you have to get to face these bosses, and then as you get them, you go and find 10 or 15 different parts, and then you go and find 5 little animals that you'll eventually shoot at them to distract them so that you can shoot them a bunch. And it's basically the same for or I guess there's only 4, so all 4 bosses. Like, it's like, why? I don't know. It just seemed like that it was going to be cool. The first time I did it, I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. And it's like, oh wait, I'm basically doing the exact same thing, just the machine looks different. Instead of on a giant, like, mech suit that I'm in, I'm on a freaking jet ski type deal. So I thought that was a little lackluster, in my opinion. Moving on to the next one is that I feel like the morality system, the light and dark choices that you can make, didn't really have a huge impact that I noticed. I played through the whole game twice. Excuse me. And I didn't really notice a difference between the two, other that some of the biomutations required a certain amount of light or a certain amount of dark to be able to use them. But honestly, it didn't really matter because, like, your points, it doesn't, like, sway one way or the other, because it's like, oh, like, if I wanted the electricity biomutation, I just get 30 light, and you can literally just go and swoop up a bunch of animals, and you can choose to keep them and pet them, which lets you go dark, or you can choose to kill them, which goes dark. So it's like, really, there was no real consequences or anything based on your decisions. I mean, there's a lot of decisions there, but they didn't seem like they will have an effect on the game. And kind of the last and final thing that I noticed is that you run into a lot of mini bosses in the game, which is awesome. Like, that was one of the things that I did like, that there's a lot of, things to do throughout the world. But the thing that I did hate is that just throughout fighting them, like, sometimes you can kind of sway away from where the original fight started. And I noticed that, like, especially, like, you find, like, these big old cats that kind of, like, roll. If you get too far away from where the battle originally started, their health, like, fills back up, basically. So, like, if you didn't kill them and you came back, you have to fight them. So that was really annoying, because there's a few times where I literally was trying to fight this one there's a spot where you fight 3 different cats, like under a bridge or something. And I was trying to fight them, but I kept kind of swaying away, and so I literally took me like 10 minutes to beat these 3 big cats. And they do like the thing where they roll into a ball and they like hit you or not. There'd be times I'd dodge them and they'd run past me, and like, but they'd get far enough away from me that their health got full, come back. So it's like really annoying that it took me like 10 minutes. Yeah, so those were all the main things that I really had an issue with, or nitpicky kind of things. Now we'll go into the things that I really liked about the game. So first off, I thought the biomutations were pretty cool. You start out with some pretty basic ones, you know, throwing acid or throwing like a mushroom to jump on. But the more you save like your, what would they call them, like psi points, bio psi points or something like that, you can get some pretty cool ones. You can get levitate. One of my personal favorites was the lightning. I really like the lightning. I saved up a lot just to get it. So a lot of the biomutations were cool. You can summon a big fireball and throw it, and then you could do like this weird like dodge when you dodge, like fire leaves a fire trail right behind you, catching the enemies on fire. So a lot of the biomutations were really fun, and I really liked experimenting with them. That was a whole lot of fun. Next thing is that I thought the world was pretty interesting. You can definitely tell that this game is kind of like a big melting pot of a bunch of like pieces from a bunch of other, as I'm smacking my lights and stuff, big melting pot of a bunch of other games. And I guess that's kind of like a con too. It's like that saying where it's like a jack of all trades, master of none. And that's kind of what this game was. It was like, it had a lot of concepts that I thought were good, but it never really excelled at any of its concepts. But, you know, with that being said, I did think, especially for 20 people, I keep thinking that in my mind when I found this out, is that 20 people made this game, which is freaking impressive. But yeah, the world itself, when you looked at it, the main story I thought was interesting. Trying to save the tree, trying to unite the tribes. I mean, it's very generic. I feel like we've heard this type of story before. But it had its own twist enough that I thought it was interesting. It actually reminded me a lot of like Kung Fu Panda, like no joke. And if you've seen Kung Fu Panda and you wanted it in video game form, which they did have for the 360, it was a fun game. This is definitely it. So, world was interesting. The raids, there's the 9 tribes. You side with one at the beginning, and then you end up invading a few more. You can invade them all, but after you get to like a certain point where I think the halfway point where you've officially raided or taken over half the tribes. So I want to say the 4th tribe, right? 5 tribes, something like that. The other tribes will basically say like, "Hey, we give up," or you get the option to accept their defeat or whatever you want to call it, or raid them. On both my playthroughs, first time I chose to accept their defeat, and then the next time I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna raid everybody. So I raided everybody, but the raid system was fun the first time, and then the second time I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of the same, and then after doing all of them, it's literally the exact same thing. You start out, you get like a certain item, and then you just take over the thing, and the boss fight where you're fighting their Sifu or whatever is kind of the same for pretty much all of them. Except for they have a different weapon, so... going on to the next one, I thought the boss fights, there's 4 major boss fights, 4 major world eaters. They're all unique, and I thought that they were fun, but they're kind of like so-so. Like, they were fun and cool, like they're very big, but the way that you beat them was pretty simple. For the most part, they all have like these bumps on their arms and legs, and you just hit that a bunch of times to where it pops, it falls down, and it gives you a chance to do quite a bit of damage. But overall, I still had fun with the boss fight, so I enjoyed it. Going on to the next one, the crafting. I really enjoyed the crafting in this game. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was very simple. At first, it was a little like... because they just piled a bunch of stuff, all the tutorials, right at the beginning, so I was a little lost at the beginning. It's like weird. The game went like, there's a lot to do, and then since they front-loaded it, it kind of died down in the middle, and then as you get towards the the last like 3/4 or last fourth of the game, it really picks up, and I had fun. But yeah, crafting overall I thought was fun. I made a pretty sweet. After experimenting a lot, I finally made like this cool like. It reminded me of like a Final Fantasy type giant Buster Sword type thing. It looked really cool. I did a lot of damage with it. I ended up getting it to 7 stars, so it was pretty cool. And I used that sword mainly as I was a melee build for the most part. So crafting was a lot of fun. And yeah, the character design I thought was great. You can not only get to decide which attributes you want, but it also affects the way that your character looks, which I thought was pretty cool. Even if you don't like how it looks, or you decide that you wanted to change it later on, there is an option to like, per se, like, oh yeah, I wanted to do strength. I forget what the wheel looks like, but basically you can't be super strong and super smart at the same time. So it like moves around this circle. But if you decided that you wanted to change your attributes up, there is opportunities throughout the game later that you'll be able to change your appearance. Not only that, but change your fur and whatnot. I don't believe you can change your race, like your species that you are in the game, but you can definitely change what you look like and your stats. So, yeah, character design I thought was fantastic. Both playthroughs, I had a lot of fun kind of experimenting with it a little bit. And then the last thing that I really liked is that it had a Breath of the Wild type feel with the biomes. You can go to biomes that are super cold, where you have to have certain equipment on so you don't freeze, or biomes that are super hot, or radiation, or poison, or all these different things, no oxygen. And so you had to have like these different equipment to be able to go through it successfully, or otherwise you would eventually die. It's got like the percentages going up. So I did like the biome. It kind of brought some variety to the areas, so you're not just going through a certain thing over and over and over again. Like for instance, I found some stuff in this area where I was getting hypoxic, so I didn't have any oxygen, and I couldn't fully explore it till later once I got the breathing suit or whatever, so that I could have oxygen. So it was a lot of fun. I really like the biome, and despite all its flaws, and because don't get me wrong, it does have a lot of flaws, and a lot of the stuff that I mentioned are very big flaws. I had a lot of fun. Did I think this game was gonna blow me away? No, not really. It looked interesting, so I got it. But it definitely had a lot of issues that I think in their next game, or whatever they decide to do next, I think they're going to take a lot of this stuff from the fans, especially since it's only like I said, it's only done by 20 people, despite like its flaws and whatnot. I'm impressed. I don't know how to design games. That would be cool if I did, but to have somebody, I just think of like 20 people getting together and making the game that I just played, and it just blows my mind that only 20 people did it. So, because then you have games like, let's see, what was the game I just played? Like Returnal and Ratchet and Clank and Resident Evil 8 that had, tons of people working on it and thousands of dollars pumped into it. And this one was just kind of a small budget, 20 people made it, and it's impressive. So, overall, to give my final thoughts on this, I would give this game a 6 out of 10. Kind of on the lower side, but still a fun game. I just want people to know that even though I am giving this a lower score, I had fun. So I had a lot of fun, and I actually can't wait to see what they decide to do next. I'm very excited. Like I said, kind of reminded me of Mortal Shell. Mortal Shell was done by a very small group of people as well, and the fact that that game and this game were able to pump out what they did literally blows my mind, and I think it's awesome. I just imagine what this group can do with a bigger budget and some more people. I think their next game is going to be a good one, and I'm definitely going to be watching this studio from now on. But yeah, like I said, 6 out of 10. Comment down below, guys. What did you guys think of it? Have you played it yet? And yeah, that's going to leave it for today's video, guys. Like I said, don't forget to like and subscribe. And yeah, comment down below. What do you guys think? Do you guys agree with my review? Yeah, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a good one.